All right, everybody, welcome into the MCT. You got M and C of that podcast here, alongside the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the host, creator, executive producer, all the title script of the Crash Course podcast. And that is Craig Collins, Craig Crash Collins himself down there. We also have, as you can see on your screen, two additional people. We have two guests in this podcast because we couldn't really do a baseball podcast without bringing on some extra baseball minds that are going to help enlighten us in everything. And we're doing this because spring training's right around the corner, and we just, as big baseball fans, we needed any excuse really to talk baseball. As Michael and I alluded to last week, we didn't get to talk any MLB baseball in our MCT podcast this week, so we felt sad. So we threw a whole special together. And so the first thing I want to do is introduce those two guests. So one of you guys, go ahead and take it away.
My name is Bryce Williams. I'm one of Michael's high school friends. We graduated in the same class of 2014. Yeah, that's really it about me. Besides, I'm just a big baseball fan, I guess.
Love it. Got him old. Cool.
I'm Matt Michael. Met Chris there down at Ball State. So been removed there for a couple of years now, but also big baseball fan. It looks like got a couple Cubs guys on here. I'm a White Sox guy, so we'll have some good discussions here tonight.
I'm a big Pirates guy, so I'm kind of conflicting with some of you guys in the NL Central there.
Perfect. I love it. That's I wanted variety here. It wouldn't be any fun, as much as it might be fun. It wouldn't be fun if Craig and I got three more Cubs buddies and we all just kind of loved on the Cubs all day. So
just
great.
Commiserated in the Cubs offseason.
Oh, it's been so much fun. I've loved everything. So we'll get all into all that every second. So the first thing we're gonna do is, real easy, guys. I'm lobbing you all a softball. We're just gonna talk our favorite baseball moments. Why that one thing that kind of makes you fall in love with the sport, and that moment that you've held on to that stands out to you. That when you think baseball, you snap those fingers. What comes up? And we're gonna again throw it to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Craig. Go ahead and lead us off, bud.
Yeah, so as a Cubs fan, obviously there's a lot of ways you could go with this, as far as the favorite moment that you could go with, whether it be, obviously the World Series win. You could go with, the wild card game where Jake Arrieta was just absolutely insane. There's a lot of moments you can go off of here recently for the Cubs, but for me, I thought I'd go a little different. So my first trip to Wrigley Field was in 2015. Cubs were playing the Padres that day. And they had a 6-2 lead. It was a great game. Kyle Hendricks was on the bump. I was so thrilled, so excited because I was like, oh, the Cubs are going to win. My first trip to Wrigley Field. This is going to be awesome. They led 6-2 heading into the ninth. And then in comes Phil Koch, and that lead slowly starts going away. They bring in Hector Rondon for the save. He blows the save. And so it went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. I was so bummed, so depressed. It goes into extra innings. Starlin Castro, with the bases loaded against future Cubs closer Craig Kimbrell, ends up getting the game-winning single to win it for the Cubs. So it was just a roller coaster of emotions. First trip to Wrigley, first trip to Chicago. Thought the Cubs were going to win easily. Then obviously should have remembered that I'm a Cubs fan. Nothing can be easy. And then the Cubs ended up winning in the end. So I've been to Wrigley a few times, but that's one that sticks out in my mind as a favorite baseball memory.
So you're telling me your first trip to Wrigley, you saw a walk-off win? That's incredible.
Yes.
That's awesome. I've never seen a walk-off win in any sport, or like a buzzer beater, like nothing like that. I really want to be there for one of those moments one of these days. So my favorite baseball moment is probably my earliest memory of actually being there and understanding what was happening and watching the sport play out. And that was way back in the 2001 World Series. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, watching the 4-year-old expansion Arizona Diamondbacks not only make the trip to their first and subsequently only World Series to this point, but not only that, they faced the juggernaut of the New York Yankees, who were coming off of not 1, 2, but 3 straight World Series wins, going for number 4. And, it was a back and forth series. A fun fact of that series, the home team won every game in that series, and that ended up going 7. You have the crazy 3 games there in the middle in New York with 2, not 1, but 2 come from behind down two runs. The Yankees were in to come back and hit runs, and Alfonso Soriano was a rookie, hit a big home run in one of those games, I believe Game 5, and it's just crazy. Poor Young Kim blows back-to-back saves and back-to-backs. But my favorite memory is obviously Game 7. I got to stay up late past my bedtime. I'm like 9 years old, and watching the greatest closer to ever step on a mound come out there with a 1-run lead in the 9th in Arizona. It's in the Bob. It's in Bank One Ballpark. And I just remember my heart sinking as that inning even started, because I'm like, man, even at 9 years old, I recognized greatness. And I was like, there's no way they're going to score. Like, I really had no faith that they could score off Rivera. And they end up getting not 1, but 2 runs and a walk-off little bloop single by Luis Gonzalez. I'll never, ever forget it. And just chills every time I think of that moment. It's absolutely legendary.
See, for me, I'm going to have to go with a couple of different ones just because they're both just by players who aren't really even in the league anymore. First was the Homer Bailey no-hitter against the Giants in 2012. Because if you guys have followed baseball recently, Homer Bailey has allowed none of those ever again. And his name's Homer for a reason. That man just gives up the long ball. He is notoriously bad. But for that one night where he was literally one base runner away from a perfect game, it was truly spectacular watching that game. And we were just waiting for Homer to blow it, which is really bad for me to say, but that was his reputation. And then the other one's going to have to be the Scooter Gennett 4 home run, 10 RBI game, because he's a Cincinnati kid. And at first, when he joined the team, he was wearing Brandon Phillips number 4, which that was the first season where he wasn't with the Reds anymore. And it was kind of sacrilegious. And to watch that man go out and make baseball history in the camo uniforms was awesome. But for me, the most important thing about that moment is my daughter was born a few weeks before, and being able to kind of sit on the couch, she was asleep on my chest, and trying everything I can not to freak out at every home run, just because I was literally watching history, but I could not share the same emotions just because I had a sleeping newborn on my chest. But it was awesome. Also, fun fact, she's now a huge Reds fan. So raising him right.
There you go.
That's awesome. No, yeah, and for me, obviously a lot of White Sox memories. The last 12 years haven't been super fun, but a lot to pick from. Obviously, Burley's perfect game, the 2008 blackout game, which is kind of the first game that really kick-started those one-game playoffs. That was a 1-0 game. Jim Thome had a home run that game. Paul Konerko's grand slam and in the 05 World Series in Game 2. That's usually a big fan favorite, but later in that game is actually probably my favorite. This guy who has no home runs all season. I think he hit one other home run before that in the postseason, but Scott Podsednik hit a walk-off to win Game 2, go up 2-0. I mean, basically a chokehold already on the World Series, 2 games, and that was insane. That was insanity. I mean, Chicago was pretty lit that night, so that has to be number 1 for me.
So mine is not so much of a specific memory, but I actually had the privilege to develop a friendship with a former major league player, Trayvon Robinson. He was a outfielder with the Seattle Mariners in the years 2011 and 2012. And as I said earlier, I'm a big Pirates fan, so I go to a bunch of Indy Indians games, which is the AAA for the Pirates. And I also like beating players and doing things like that. And the Indians have a bunch of meet and greets. So I walked up to, Trayvon one night, he just started talking to me and was real friendly, real nice. And since I go to so many games a year, eventually I just got to know him know him as a person. I followed him on his social medias and he followed me back and we started talking and DMs, and he left me a couple tickets for some games. And then one night he asked me out of the blue, "Hey man, you want to go grab some food?" And I was like, "Sure, where you want to go?" And I got in his truck with him and we went to this place called Coach's Tavern down in Indy. I'm not sure if you guys have ever ate there, but it's a really nice place.
Nice.
But I would say that's probably definitely my favorite one, is just because he was a top prospect coming up. I think he was like the number 3 Dodgers prospect in the year 2008, I believe, before he got traded to Seattle. So I guess just getting to know somebody on that kind of a stage, it just, I don't know, it's kind of surreal for me still to this day. So
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but that's something I certainly can't attest to. That I don't have anything like close to that on any kind of level. But all right, guys, thanks for sharing your favorite memories. And now we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna flip the script, and we're gonna talk about our least favorite moments in baseball. Just those heartbreaking, those ones that really kind of make you kind of question, like why do I love this sport so much when it does almost nothing but hurt me? And we're gonna kind of just snake backwards here in order. So, Bryce, I know you just talked. Take a deep breath, and go ahead, and I'm gonna have you kick us off for the least favorite moments.
well, that one would be the year 2018, which I had a really good fantasy baseball team that year. I had Kershaw, Nola from the Phillies, and then Aaron Judge, and even D Gordon played somewhat good for me that year. And I went like 25-1 or something like that, leading into the championship game. And even Michael can attest to this. I like those fantasy deep leagues to where you have like 20 teams in the league.
Yep.
So you
That hockey
learn
league,
how to
though.
draft. So you really have to know what you're doing in terms of drafting. And like I say, for me to only lose one game that year was so good, which, my second loss was the championship game. So that was such a heartbreaker to go like 20-1 and then get to the fantasy baseball championship and just lose it. Like my team just bombed out.
Chris, that hitting home for you with your football championship this past year?
Yeah, I didn't have to connect those dots. I already did it up in here, and it's all good.
Well, I can commiserate with you, Bryce, because I've been to the championship of my league 4 times and still haven't won. So I'm the Buffalo Bills.
I literally gonna say he's the Buffalo
my
Bills
fantasy
of this.
baseball league.
Perfect. Oh man.
That's great. No, my least favorite, not a specific game, but it has to be the Chris Sale trade for me. Those rough years from basically it seems like my whole adult life being a Sox fan. I mean, Chris Sale was kind of the guy, perennial all-star. I mean, it was the right move, obviously. I mean, we were getting back, Kopech and Yoan. Obviously, it's done wonders here for the team, but having a guy like Chris Sale, like that staple on your team, I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow. I mean, he was legit, but then even seeing him going to win the World Series was kind of bittersweet. I don't like the Red Sox, so but obviously with him, closing out that, getting the final out of that game was pretty awesome. So that would definitely have to be my least favorite moment.
Yeah. I can really say the same in terms of being a Pirates fan because it seems like we're always selling players. So
Yeah.
watched,
I think we all can feel that, especially after this past year. Like all of us lost our starting. Every single one of our teams lost their like ace pitchers. I think this past year, and the White Sox trade away Dane Dunning. So like,
yeah.
Hey, but
pitchers.
but they added Liam Hendricks and a couple other guys. We'll get into that later for sure.
Yeah, and Lance Lynn wasn't a bad get back for them either.
Right.
Dunning.
That was kind of the hope. Is obviously, Dunning is he had a good showing here the last few games he pitched, but obviously Lance Lynn's a more known commodity. So I mean that's the hope. So
Michael, what you got?
Oh, was it me? I thought it was. Oh, it is me. So
You wrote this thing.
This coffee has not kicked in yet. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Coke with coffee. Please sponsor us. Honestly, in hindsight, it's gonna have to be 2 moments in particular. That's Ken Griffey Jr.'s last home run as a Red, because that is still my favorite baseball player of all time. And watching that, and then knowing that he was probably going to be on the move, and it hurt inside, but it was a really bittersweet moment. And then Bronson Arroyo, when I didn't, because when he re-signed with the Reds, I did not think that he was going to start, and if he was, just be for a few games. And he played in a healthy 40 something odd games that year. Didn't play well, but it was still awesome to see, him come back and have a few games. It was just kind of awesome. But yeah, as soon as he made it very clear it was his last run, just kind of wanted to be in Cincinnati, and it was a bittersweet because they just played all of his career moments all throughout the season just to make me sad and pull my heartstrings. But Yeah, that's got to be up there as two of my least favorite moments in baseball.
Yeah. So, real quick, my runner-up has to be, as a Cubs fan, Craig's going to know both of these moments real well. My runner-up had to be, I was kind of waffling. The 2008 season, just as a whole, was a really disappointing season for the Cubs because it was the kind of the season they looked, like a dominant team. They had all the pieces that you thought could make a deep run. They won the Central. They won 96 games or so, 97 games maybe, I believe. And then the postseason gets started. It's a best of 5 series, and they get swept out the door by the Dodgers. Just 1, 2, 3 done. And I just remember kind of being in shock really when Game 3 ended. I'm like, this is actually all over? Like, no, they're so much better than this. This isn't right, And so that was really tough. But the number one moment has to be the 2018 National League wildcard game. Now, I'll preface this by saying I didn't really expect the Cubs to win it all that year. They struggled a lot. Their offense, just like ever since 2016, their offense is so hit or miss. It's kind of ridiculous. But that game, really going into that game, I felt pretty confident that they could handle the Rockies in Wrigley Field. But it ended up being a 2-1 Rockies win in 13 innings. And, my boy Javi Baez had the only offense. He had an RBI double that scored pinch runner Terrence Gore in the bottom of the 8th. And I was like, I was at Craig's house watching the game. We were both like hyped. We're tied at 1. Like, we got life in this game. Like, let's go. And then freaking Tony freaking Walters in the 13th inning hits an RBI single to score Trevor's Story, and what turned out to be the winning run. But Craig, hey, just remember, at least Trevor Story only hit a single, so
it's a line
can't possibly lose off that.
It's a line that Chris and I usually still say to this day of like, well, hey, at least Trevor Story only hit a single because that's all they could talk about on the broadcast.
That's all A-Rod said.
At least Trevor Story didn't hit a home run. That's the main thing.
Literally, Trevor Story hits a leadoff single in the bottom or the top of the 13th, and Alex Rodriguez is like, "Well, it's only a single, so it's pretty much still a win for the Cubs." Like, no, it's still a base runner. Right. And sure enough, he turned out to be the game-winning run. So yeah, that one really broke my heart just because I thought it was a game they could have and should have won pretty handily.
Yeah, I'm going to go with mine. I'm going to go a little bit off script. I have mine listed as the Cubs being swept by the Mets in 2015, which that did stink. But I'm going to go on the same lines as Matt went with something that happened. I guess the Chris Sale trade happened during the season, but like moves and stuff, and all that kind of thing, transactions. I'm going to go with that because because I was thinking about it. I was like, 2015 when the Cubs got swept by the Mets, there was still a lot of hope there. And you have 2016 was awesome. 2017, that Washington National Series was so great that it made the losing to the Dodgers, who we didn't really have a chance against anyway, kind of a little bit better. And then 2018, we've already discussed that. So I'm going to go with just this past offseason for the Cubs has been my least favorite moment. For this, run that the Cubs have been on, just kind of finally being. I don't want to say over because it's not technically over, but as far as getting rid of Yu Darvish after he finally figures it out, they've been talking about possibly all the rumors with Chris Bryant swirling around, the fact that they didn't bring back John Lester, they got rid of Kyle Schwarber. We're going to talk about all that a little bit later, but just this offseason of, oh, hey, you know what? We were awesome, a couple years ago, and, our core is still pretty strong. We're going to go ahead and just get rid of everybody that ever played well for us these past few years, and we're going to bring in some new guys who can still, I think, carry the weight, but this past offseason for the Cubs has not been a great one. So I'll have that down as my least favorite moment, at least here recently.
And you know what, Craig, that's actually perfect to lead us right into keep the line rolling right into our next segment. We're going to talk about this past offseason and just some moves that kind of shocked us that we think will have big impacts over the course of this upcoming season, this 2021 season that is sure to have a whole bunch of storylines and things happen just like every year. We're getting excited for it. It's just about that time. And I'm actually going to kick this one off. Yeah, that's right. I said it. My special, my rules. Here we go. This offseason move, so it's not going to be a Cubs-related move. I was really pleasantly surprised to see the Atlanta Braves, who are so good. Everybody seems to already forget that they were a game away from the World Series. They had a 3-1 lead over that dominant Dodgers team, and they arguably should have won that series, but baseball happens and they lost 3 straight. But man, they really didn't hang their heads on that one. They're going to learn from that. They're going to hold on to that. And they went out and got a really good pitcher who I think is kind of being overlooked in this offseason. They went out and signed to just a 1-year, $15 million deal, Charlie Morton, to shore up that rotation alongside Max Fried and Mike Soroka. So, I mean, that's a 1-2-3 punch that is going to go good against kind of anybody. And that really was the Braves, I think, downfall was their pitching kind of let them down. No one's going to say their offense can't get it done because they've got bats all over the place. So, I mean, you know, and if you look at what Charlie Morton has done last year, he only started 9 games. We only played 60, so that's fine. He went 2-2 with a 4.74 ERA. Not great, but nobody really had a good year last year, I think, outside of, you know, Trevor Bauer and Yu Darvish. If you look at his 2019 season, he went 16-6 with a career low 3.05 ERA. He was an all-star, and he finished 3rd in the Cy Young voting that year. So, I mean, he's a veteran leader for this Braves team. He obviously knows how to pitch at an elite level. And just like I said, pairing him with Soroka and Fried really kind of adds another dimension to that starting rotation. And that's what Atlanta needs to potentially try to take what's going to be a very, very tough National League this year.
And keep in mind, too, there that the Braves still have those couple of those higher end prospects in the rotation that they've been rotating in and out. So that is a huge one. But for me, I'm going to have to talk about that Nolan Arenado trade. And not just the fact that he is in the majority of our division now. I just want to talk about how the Rockies kind of got the shaft on that one, if I may. They got, and stop me if you heard of any of these guys. Left-handed pitcher, Austin Gomber.
Yes.
Mateo Gil. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna stop him.
No. I was gonna say. I know Gomber just from he's played a few times in relief against the you know he's come up in a few games for the Cardinals. Okay. And I probably wouldn't know him as much if he wasn't an MLB. Like I haven't had him a few times or seen his card. In MLB The Show a few times too. So that's the only reason why I know as well.
That's literally what I was thinking. I was wondering. I was like, "This has got to be the show, right?" Because I don't know him at all. That's hilarious.
But Elias Montero, I feel like I just butchered that man's name. Tony Lacey and Jake Summers, and they only got that's it. No Dylan Carlson, and they walked away with Arenado and $51 million in cold hard cash. Like, how are they not giving up top 5
Not prospect? Even just Carlson, but they also, where does Matt Carpenter play now? So why couldn't they have at least gotten Carpenter back as like a okay-ish guy who's good? Yeah, just as a piece who's going to put up decent numbers with an improved, with being into an improved hitting environment like, Coors Field.
An MLB level piece. That's what we saw in all of these offseason trades. We didn't see a lot of MLB level pieces move. It was all prospects, 17, 18-year-old kids.
Because even in the Yu Darvish trade, at least the Cubs got back Zach Davies. Like you would have thought, but at least it's something to replace what was gone. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying with Matt Carpenter.
Sure.
It seems to me the Cardinals are the only one who cares about winning the Central this year.
They're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I think a lot of the moves that the Cubs and Reds made are to for one, shed payroll, obviously, but also I think a lot of teams were banking on expanded playoffs, and that's why they didn't get more. They were thinking, okay, there's going to be 80 teams in the postseason this year, so we don't need to worry about getting some payroll this year.
Sorry, Mike. Greg? We kind of steamrolled you there.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Really quick, the only thing that really just kind of made sense why they didn't get more is that Arenado only batted .253 in Coors Field with only 8 home runs. It feels really weird to say that, but it's Coors Field.
Yeah.
However, he was a Gold Glove winner. So the Cardinals have locked down corners of the infield. And it's just, I'm just still confused as to why they didn't get a whole lot back. But to Craig's point, we saw a lot of prospects get moved around. And I felt like there should have been some more higher end prospects. I think the only higher end prospect that was of note was Dane Dunning being on the move. But you got a Cy Young contender in Lance Lynn. So you got something relatively good back. It's still just rough.
Yeah. I'm going along those lines. As far as we mentioned it a second ago, the Yu Darvish trade to the Padres. I think it solidified that the Padres were in go for it mode. I know the Padres have made a lot of moves. They got Joe Musgrove. They got Blake Snell. But I think the move for Yu Darvish kind of told everyone like, hey, the Padres are going to make are going to try to do something this season and build off of a great 2020 campaign. They get Yu Darvish, who in 2020 was 8-3 with a 2.01 ERA, struck out 93. Probably should have been the Cy Young winner, but I guess there's Trevor Bauer. No. But the Padres traded Zach Davies, who did play well in 2020. 7-4 with a 2.73 ERA, 63 strikeouts. And really, no one the Cubs got back in return as far as prospects are, break MLB's top 100 prospects, and the Padres currently have 4. So, with what the Cubs got back, the only one that's ranked in the top 10 of their organization right now is Reginald Precadio, their shortstop. So that's really the only guy that the Cubs kind of got back prospect-wise when the Padres are just stacked in their farm system right now. So that was pretty shocking to me, but I think that move showed the rest of Major League Baseball that, hey, the Padres are in go for it mode. And I think it's got a little bit more legs to it than a couple years ago when they got like James Shields and Crick Kimbrell and all that stuff. I think this time it's going to be, these are great moves for them to try to contend in the NL West.
Yeah, and really quick, just to piggyback off that, I think that move, as you said, solidified them not only in go for it mode, but I think for me personally, as a not Padres fan that's just watching them from the outside in, like I think that move took them from like, okay, they're a solid wildcard team that I wouldn't really want to see, to now like, oh man, they're going to compete for the NL West with those Dodgers. Like they're going to be neck and neck with those Dodgers competing for that division title.
They have to. Like with what they threw in, they have to. And I was going to go off of kind of what you said there, Craig, but like, I mean, just the Padres in general. I mean, like, I know you mentioned Darvish, but I mean, Musgrove and Snell. I mean, Musgrove is so underrated. I mean, he has been for the last 2-3 years. So to not go off of what you did, really the one thing, I did not see Bauer going to LA. I didn't. That one, I think the only reason LA did that was because I believe that was after some of these moves, like, at least after Snell and Musgrove. And I mean, I think they know like the Padres are right on their heels. I think even without Bauer, I still think the Dodgers are the better team. Turner coming back the other day, that was massive.
That's huge.
That was massive. Like, I mean, I didn't really realistically think he'd leave, but I mean, now that he's locked up and staying there. So, I mean, the NL West in general, just the moves that they made, it was, and that division is going to be hell of fun. I mean, it's going to be so fun, man. Like just those two, it's gonna be a hell of a race.
It's so funny because that division you have arguably the two best teams in the NL and then 3 bottom feeders. Though,
yeah, they're awful behind them, but it's still gonna be so.
Those
fun.
two is gonna be so much fun, 100%.
Just really quick, I kind of agree there, Matt. Obviously, I didn't see Trevor Bauer going to LA because
he wasn't going
in a particular city. I could dream, okay? Just because you lost your Cy Young contender doesn't mean I have to lose my Cy Young winner.
The rightful Cy Young winner from last year.
But you did.
Whoa.
You're Mickey. Did you say Mickey Mouse Cy Young winner? Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Wow. Shots fired. I can hear those down the street. Let's go.
But the only thing that kind of surprised me is how many teams are going to be willing to offer Trevor Bauer that contract at the way it was structured.
Yeah.
Because the way it's structured is basically 3 one-year deals, which means he doesn't lose his bet. just really quick for 2 seconds. Have you guys heard about that?
I did. Yes.
I only heard about it because you was going to say you told us last night, but that's only
that's true.
But Matt and Bryce, have you guys heard about that bet and why the deal was structured that way?
A little bit. You can expand on a little bit here for me, but I have heard a little bit of it.
From what? So Trevor Bauer has a bet set up with one of his friends saying that he would never, ever sign a long-term contract. It would only be 1-year deals once he's eligible to sign in free agency. If he signs a long-term contract, he then has to get shot in the family jewels with a paintball gun at 10 feet away. So he signed basically 3 one-year deals that he can opt out of at any time. And I just found that absolutely hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Are we on to me now?
Yes.
It's you, sir.
All right.
Yeah, let's
So-
go.
All right. So this one's kind of a rarity for me. A Yankees and Red Sox trade. Adam Ottavino, which has been a strong Yankees reliever for, well, he had kind of a down season last year. He posted like a 5.90 ERA. But the year before, he posted a 1.90 ERA.
Mm.
The Yankees traded him and a minor league pitcher. I think his name was Frank Herman. I thought that he was a top prospect coming up, but I think he's kind of fallen off of the top 30 prospect list over the last couple of years. And their return was a player to be named later or cash. So seeing how the Red Sox pitching is, it makes sense, but it was kind of a salary dump in my opinion. I think that's what it was. Throwing a prospect, it's kind of a salary dump. So that was kind of a shock to me, because how often do you hear about the Yankees and Red Sox trading? Because the only one that I can think of is Babe Ruth.
I swear, I thought I saw there was one done, like, I want to say around like 2012, but like the last one that was done, but I can't remember any of the details of it, because when that Ottavino trade broke, that's what somebody, ESPN or whoever, was like, well, this is the first Red Sox Yankees trade since but I don't remember the details. But yeah, and I mean, you talk about the Yankees and as good as everybody kind of expects them to be in the AL East this coming year, Aroldis Chapman and that bullpen is not what they should be or used to be. So sending Ottavino kind of out was a bit of a shocker. So the next bit of off-season talk we're going to have is just kind of the lack of moves or maybe some moves or the lack of moves that are just kind of, head scratchers or not sitting well with us, kind of annoying us. And once again, I'll take the reins. I'll lead this one off, and I am going to just real quick, because Craig's gotten into a little bit of this and stuff, but I'm going to rant a little bit on my Cubs, because as Craig said, this is probably the hardest offseason really to go through since I've been a Cubs fan. And listen, and I've suffered through 100-loss seasons that I knew in March were going to be 100-loss seasons. And I had more fun in the offseason and the season than this right now, because at least back then, hey, they were the lovable losers. They're still playing at Wrigley. There's still all these things. They're a lot of fun to watch, and you just have no expectations. And now, that feels like they got a taste of winning. Feels like the Ricketts got their title, and then they're like, cool, now it's all about the money. And I don't care what kind of team we put out there. It's all about the dollars. The fact that they don't bring Lester back, who there was a story after he signed with Washington that came out that he went to the Cubs front office basically as soon as he could, as soon as the season ended, and said, I want to come back to Chicago. What kind of dollars are we talking about to make that happen? And the Cubs basically were like, well, we can't sign off on anything. So I don't know. To basically just shrug off a guy like John Lester, who is the biggest single reason that franchise took the turn that it did for this window, it is so disrespectful to me as a fan. I can't even imagine how John Lester felt with that conversation going the way that it went. That's
one of the heroes of the World Series.
It's so ridiculous to just basically not even really thank him or give him a send off, but just to kind of shrug your shoulders and be like, well, you want actual money? We can't do that. We're only the third biggest market in baseball. What do you expect? And then to not bring back Schwarber, who goes off and kind of breaks the mold of a contract by getting more. He's one of the few players I saw that he gets more in now with his deal than he would have in arbitration. If the Cubs had taken him to arbitration, they would have only had to pay him about what they're paying Jock Peterson. So it doesn't make any sense. None of their offseason moves have really made any sense. Don't get me wrong. I love bringing our Arrieta and even Pedro Strop back. But so you're telling me you could pay those guys to come back, but you couldn't keep Schwarber and Lester? It doesn't, none of it computes. You can bring in Jock Peterson, but you can't give that same money to Schwarber. None of it just makes any sense. And it's just really a piss poor offseason, to put it nicely. As a Cubs fan, it's so infuriating to watch a team that still has potential to be really good. If you look at their 1 through 5 and their potential lineup, it's really good. You still have Happ, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, and Wilson Contreras. Those are solid high-end talent pieces, and you just put nothing around them and basically just shrugged your shoulders and said, well, that's as good as we can do. And it's just flat out not the truth. Whew, okay, rant over. Somebody else go.
Well, and I mean, one of the players the Cubs also didn't bring back was Jose Quintana, who goes to the Angels, and that's the one that I was going to talk about, because the Angels did not really address their pitching woes. And also real quick on Jose Quintana, that kind of solidifies the Jose Quintana trade as being one of the. I mean, I guess the Alex Avila trade is still the worst one that Theo ever made, but that's going to be a close second now that Quintana's not there anymore. What the Cubs gave up to go then now, to go get Quintana. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so I wanted to address the Angels a little bit. They didn't add pitching that they desperately needed. They had a middle of the road pitching staff in 2020. They did add Alex Cobb, who if he can kind of find his magic again, same with Quintana, they could be solid starters. But Bauer, they could have made a play for, although I guess he didn't have the greatest relationship with Mickey Callaway, so that was probably a little bit more far-fetched. Odorizzi is still out there. There's there's still there still is plenty of pitching talent out there that the Angels could have got. Because in my opinion, like I said, I think the AL West is up for grabs right now. I mean, the Astros, they're not going to have Verlander. Their bullpen's kind of suspect in my opinion. Yes, they still have Bregman and Correa, but they lose Springer, which is a big loss. The Athletics are not going to be a team that can really – they're going to be good, but they're not going to run away with that division. So the Angels had an opportunity with all the talent they have, on the batting side, obviously with Trout and Rendon and Joe Adell coming up and all that kind of thing. With all that talent that they have, they didn't add any pitching to really help. I mean, when you're rotation, when Dylan Bundy, who had a great year last year, don't get me wrong, but he's far and away still the ace of your staff going into 2021. I mean, there's no reason it should be like that. They should have. I mean, you're telling me they couldn't have made a play for Snell or Darvish, who got traded for pennies on the dollar? Like, it just doesn't really make sense why the Angels couldn't have added more.
Yeah, I mean, and it almost kind of makes me think of like Ryan Grigson for us Colts fans, like who never added anything around luck except he's like, let's just throw a bunch of skill players and fancy, like we'll just go keep getting offense, like so that seems to be what the Angels do. They're like, well, how many bats can we possibly acquire to overlook our pitching, and it doesn't work that way. But also, could you imagine if they had added Bauer on a contract like he ended up getting with LA? Holy crap, they'd be paying Trout out the wazoo, Bauer out the wazoo, and still paying Pujols way more than he needs. Like, that would have been 3 huge contracts on the book minus whoever else they've got there. So yeah, crazy.
Pujols making bank for sitting on the bench. Like, man, that is a I'm obviously going to talk about how normally in off seasons the Reds are normally quiet. The last couple of years they got super aggressive. You make trades for Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig a few years ago, which was a huge deal for us Reds fans. We don't, when the offseason happens, we usually just hibernate for a few months, and then we come back out when spring training starts and seeing what rookie pitcher is going to get the bump on opening day. But then they get aggressive. And then this past year, they get Nick Castellanos with his deep drive over the left field wall for a home run. I couldn't help it, man. Iconic.
Love it.
But I still love it. And then, you acquire, you trade away Yasiel Puig, but you got Trevor Bauer. Like, you made moves, you stayed aggressive. How in the hell can you do nothing but salary dump this year? How? Oh, hey, we made the postseason. We scored no runs.
Barely, too. Barely made the postseason.
Barely made it.
With Mike Moustakas and all those.
Yeah, expanded playoffs in a shortened season.
Like, the only one that made sense was like, oh, hey, Shogo Akiyama coming over from overseas, didn't play a full season. I knew he was going to have his struggles. But everyone else was struggling on offense, and you did nothing to help try and build their offense around that wonderful starting pitching staff that they have.
Especially
nothing? Not one?
Sorry, Mike, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Especially since just this time, the same time last year, right now we would be saying that the Reds were a series contender. That's all we heard last offseason. The Reds are a series contender. And then this season they changed direction. So
yeah. You can ask Chris. I talked way too much crap. Way too much to get a total of 1 run in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just
to be fair, the Cubs scored 1 run in 2 games at home against the Marlins.
So I'm just confused. I don't know if they are having their eyes on some of their prospects, which of course we're going to talk about later, that they think it would come up and fill up a gap. but you had guys out there and not even in the conversation for him. It's just obscene to me.
Yeah, I mean, the theme continues with our favorite team as being cheap. I don't know what it is about the city of Chicago, but same thing on the south side. I mean, it's just Jerry Reinsdorf. We made a few moves. We talked about Lance Lynn. I mean, I'm excited about that. I don't think giving up Dane Dunning was as steep as some people think. We have a crap ton of, pitching depth in the minors even coming up. And then Michael Kopech didn't even pitch last year. He's coming back. I think the Sox are fine. I think Lance Lynn will be a plus there. But, I mean, just the fact that, even Liam Hendricks, I don't know why our money was allocated there. I like Liam Hendricks. I think he's an upgrade over Colomé. But I don't think it was needed. Colomé's more than fine. He'll make you sweat a little bit, but he's still going to close out ball games. So I just don't know why we allocated money in a closer like Hendricks, who really analytics-wise hasn't been good minus the last 2 years, which obviously, I mean, I think he's definitely worth the money he got, but I just don't think it made too much sense for us. And then the biggest thing that really ticked me off was right field. I mean, arguably went down from Nomar Mazara, which I thought was freaking impossible. I mean, Adam Eaton had a worse wins above replacement than Nomar did last year. So, and Adam Eaton was a clubhouse nightmare at the end of his tenure in Chicago. So, I mean, I haven't been too crazy about the Sox. Obviously, they have so much coming up that, it probably, negates a lot of that. And, I'm not saying we needed to go out and get Bauer or George Springer, but definitely wouldn't have hurt. So again, kind of a lot of the things you guys are saying is just, some of our teams just being really cheap and it really not making much sense. So
hey, don't worry about it. You got Tony La Russa. You'll be fine.
oh my God.
I was saving that bullet. We're gonna save that bullet.
That'll be an hour long. Talk about that, man. Jeez.
Yeah, and then, same thing with me. Pirates never spend any money, so this offseason, I would say our biggest acquisition has been Todd Frazier, who we just signed to a non-guaranteed deal. Like, he's not even projected or not guaranteed to make the roster. So, and I mean, being more of a minor league baseball fan, I guess, I mean, it's good seeing these guys in Indy, which, I mean, with the Thailand trade, they got the Miguel Yawari, I think's his name, from the Yankees. And they got 3 other weapons as well. But, yeah, it's just same old Pirates, never spend any money. And then they even added Tony Walters to also a non-guaranteed deal, because right now they're banking on the catcher being Jacob Stallings, which has been, I don't even know how to describe him without using profanity.
I mean, it just and it seems like it's not a coincidence. I think that all of our favorite teams are getting cheap. I think it's kind of the message around the league. Outside of San Diego, didn't get that message. LA obviously didn't get that message. But there's a lot of teams that are looking to, hey, just and I understand. COVID and everything, I think, has kind of changed a lot of the ways that these front offices are looking at finances and dollar figures and everything. But it's getting out of hand. It's ridiculous. Some of these trades we've seen, as we talked about, are just, I mean, mind blowing for the stars that are on the move for what the return is just mind boggling. But so we're going to look ahead now. Spring training, guys, less than a week away. I mean, Put all the off-season crap aside. Like, we're here. We're at the end of February. It's that time of year. My second favorite baseball time of the year outside of October. Obviously, nothing touches October. But, man, spring training, like, just all the hope is there for every team, outside of Baltimore. Every team has that hope, has everything. So, I mean, I bring up Baltimore. I take a cheap shot at them because I'm sure we all have seen it. Just the postseason odds that Fangraphs put out there this year, absolutely hilarious. And I want everybody to just take one team that, like, I don't know, just what caught your eye the most when you're looking at these postseason odds. And for me, I mean, it's got to be those Orioles getting a 0.0% chance to make the postseason. So you can't even use the classic Jim Carrey gif of, so you're telling me there's a chance, because Fangraphs is literally telling you that Baltimore has no chance when there are teams like they at least gave like the Pirates a 0.4% chance. So they're saying like, hey, something could happen there, but they're saying there's nothing. There's no way Baltimore can find a way into the postseason. And I threw my head back and laughed so hard when I saw that. It was ridiculous.
Even the Rockies have a 0.1% chance.
How do the Red Sox have 47%?
Because they're the Red Sox.
I guess so.
Like, there's
Trash.
because there's the Red Sox. There's no reason.
Hey,
I mean, I thought it was so disrespectful to have Tampa, your reigning AL
Yeah.
champion, at an 18% chance. I understand they lost Snell, but like to act like, well, they're good. It's not LeBron James leaving the Cavs. Like,
Yep. Here's the thing. Here's the thing I gotta remember. They didn't just lose one of their top tier starters. They lost two.
but they also brought Chris Archer back. I know he's not that level, but like you can't tell me as well he's not a solid piece to bring back. Like, I don't know. That's crazy. I thought that one was kind of out there too. Anything else catch your guys' eye in these Fangraphs odds?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that also catches my eye is the fact that they have the Mets higher than the Braves because the
And not even
Braves,
close.
because especially with the Mets not getting Bauer, I'm not necessarily 100% sold that the Mets rotation is better than the Braves rotation right now.
Right.
That could change. I think, obviously going out and getting like the Trevor Mays of the world, the Francisco Lindors of the world on the other side of the coin, those are going to be, big moves. I think the Mets are going to be a playoff team this year, but I wouldn't put them as a better chance to make the playoffs than the Braves.
No, I agree.
Also,
I completely agree.
Also, let's just take a look at this NL West projection. Dodgers
Hilarious.
96, Padres 92, and the rest are below 10.
Combined, it's
No
10.
love for NL West at all, but besides them, them two squads right there.
Well, look at sorry, Chris, but look at the Diamondbacks. A year after they add Mad Bum, they add Starling Marte. It looks, they have Ketel Marte. It looks like they're going to have an amazing, run at it. And they still, they got rid of Starling Marte, but they still have, some solid pieces on that team. And it's basically out the window now. Not even better than the Giants, who all they did was bring back Gosman.
Yeah, and and for them, it's the same path that I think the Rockies are now taking. Where as soon as Arizona traded Goldschmidt to St. Louis, it hasn't. I mean, that was the first sign of Arizona doesn't want to be good. That they don't want to be good, and that's the same thing with Colorado. They shedded. So yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. I understand these projections. It's all about numbers. It's all about the fact that let's be realistic. The NL West is going to have two playoff teams. They're going to have the Padres and the Dodgers, whatever they finish up. So there's one wild card spot in the NL up for grabs. And so I think that's the number where you see those Mets and the Braves take that dip. But man, yeah, the disrespect to have the Braves such a lower number than the Mets was just crazy. And again, you talk about a team that was a game away from the World Series and all they did was add talent and not lose anybody. I think the Mets, as good as their offseason was, that's the best. This is the best offseason they've had in a long time. But their hype is kind of skyrocketing, and I don't really see it personally. I do like the NL Central. It makes me laugh just because it's kind of what we all expect, where I think it's going to be one of the most competitive divisions and also the least exciting to watch, because I think you're going to have four teams vying for a title, but I don't think I'm telling you right now, I don't see the winner of the Central winning more than 92 games if we play
First one to 81 wins the division. First one.
I mean,
race to 81, baby.
I like that. I just think it's funny that the NL Central winner they have projected as the Cardinals, and that's not even above 50%. So they're like, well, not even hey, let's bump them up to 50 because there has to be a team from the Central that if you played this season, apparently if you played this season 3 times, they would not make the playoff twice. And it's well, somebody's from the Central has to make it at least. I'm surprised if one of those numbers isn't higher.
Yeah. And does anybody looking at the AL, does anybody actually I'm shocked that Houston has a 71% chance to win that division. I don't see it.
They're not going to
they lost
the A's so low.
Yeah, they lost Springer. I mean, I think Houston's window is I have to say more close than Chicago than the Cubs. Honestly, I think their window is shrinking rapidly, and I mean, and why can't the Angels finally put it together one year and get out there? So I mean, it's wild. I mean, you know what, Matt, we're gonna throw you a bone. I really want to talk about your White Sox, man. They had such a fun year last year. I know it got halted short, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It kind of reminded me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And same with Craig, but that team last year reminded me a lot of like the 2015 Cubs, where like, hey, they finally broke through. Like the pieces are there, the pieces are there. If they all come together and take that collective step, man, I really can see them like one of the better, if not top of the line when you're talking about the AL teams. I mean, I know the Yankees are the Yankees and they look poised with a lot of firepower, but I'm really liking the White Sox core. And not only that, I mean, they've got the reigning National League or AL MVP in Jose Abreu. I mean, it just there's a lot going on there on the south side of Chicago for sure.
Yeah, you can go, Craig. Oh, I'm sorry, Bryce. My bad.
Also, with the Yankees pitching, I'm not sure if I buy their 91% chance because that pitching is not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, but they're the Bronx Bombers, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got the offense in New York, obviously, and I think really the only team who's going to even give them any trouble is Toronto. I mean, they've got some good young talent, but I still don't think they're near as good. I mean, as far as the Sox, I think, I think we got to win the division first. Obviously, you can go in as a wild card team, but I think our first step, I think we're another year or two away. From really compete. I mean, we can compete this year. I think we can win the division this year. I think we should win the division this year. I think it'll be neck and neck with the Twins, and obviously those projections, kind of hammer that out. But for me, I mean, obviously the future is super bright. I mean, you talk about even the kids coming up. Andrew Vaughn's still coming up. Jake Berger's coming off an injury. I'm hoping he can still, produce something here. And obviously, the pitching depth that we have. I mean, there's a lot there. Obviously, the big question is La Russa. Like, what does that do anything? Does a manager really do anything to your team or not? I don't know.
We're going to find out, good or bad. I think we're going to find out.
So I've got a question real quick for Michael. Did you mean to write it as Tony La Russa in the outline? Because I was like, I'm not trying to nitpick, but I think it's perfect because after Trevor Plouffe mentioned this on Talking Baseball, I haven't been able to stop thinking about the fact that you bring Tony La Russa, super old school guy, to a team that's super flashy, bat flips, like that whole morale of that team goes down if he's like, you know what, guys, we're not bat flipping. You hit a home run, you're straight face, you're running around the bases, and you're getting your butts back in the dugout. Like that's not going to be the way that team should run, and that's going to really put a damper on what that team has building.
Yeah, Tim, I really want to see have a shot with the White Sox is that prospect Zach Collins, catcher.
Yep,
he's been somebody that's really caught my eye that came up through the system in the minor league.
I mean, he's a stud when it comes. I mean, he'll hit 250, but his on base is going to be 370. I mean, he's got the best eye, maybe in the majors that no one talks about.
Sure.
But the issue is like you've got a lot invested into Grandal, so it's like, where does Collins get his at bats? And obviously now that's why McCann left, is because, I mean, McCann's going out and getting his money. The White Sox are cheap, and obviously Collins comes in. So I'm excited for Collins. I mean, there's so much talent on the team. It's about like, can La Russa, like you said, like I think at the least, I think it probably is about the same as we had, here in the past 3 years. So as far as La Russa coming in, so I mean, Renteria was fine. I think La Russa will be fine. I don't think he'll like hurt us that much, but obviously we'll have to see. So I mean, he's gonna have to. If they're going to win here in the next 2-3 years, he's got to have to be alive. So we'll see if that's even.
I mean, it's going to be really interesting to watch the first time that Tim Anderson hits a bomb and and see La Russa react. And I think that interaction is going to set the tone. I mean, really for the whole team, because Matt, like I said, you know that team a lot more than I am. Who's the leader on that team? I'd argue it's Tim Anderson, the vocal leader, the clubhouse guy. So I mean,
but Anderson's definitely that fiery young guy. So I would agree there. I mean that.
So
the guy you need to build around. So.
Yeah, I think 100%. It's going to be really interesting. And I mean, being selfish, like real quick, guys, do we think the Cubs and the Reds down there, both teams that we talked about lost major league talent? Do we think they can still kind of hold serve or rebound and find their way back to the postseason? I'll tell you right now, there's no way both teams are finding their way to the postseason, because if we looked at those numbers, you got to do the math. Padres and Dodgers are taking both spots. Do we really think the Central is going to have two playoff teams? I don't see it. I really don't see it. It's going to have to be that race to 81 that Matt said, that whoever wins the Central is the only one getting in. Now, can the Cubs do it? Absolutely. As I mentioned, that 1 through 5, I'd argue it's just about as good as anybody in the league outside of maybe LA and San Diego. If those guys keep going, I mean, Ian Happ I know it was a shortened year, but Ian Happ had a really good year last year. Took a big step. And I saw David Ross has already come out and said that, if things go the way they're going right now, he's expecting to be the leadoff guy. And if you have a switch hitter at the top of the lineup with some pop to him, I mean, he can set the tone really well. And we know, if Craig and I know specifically, the Cubs thrive. That core thrives off having a great leadoff hitter. When they had Dexter Fowler, I mean, that team ran behind Dexter Fowler. He set the tone. And if Ian Happ can be that contact guy with some power to him too, and he's a switch hitter up there, I mean, he can really set the tone if he continues off of his good 2020 season. And man, I'm telling you right now, look out for the Chris Bryant revenge tour this year. He is ready to go. He wants to be healthy. He looks healthy. I hope he stays healthy. He's been hurt a lot the last couple of years, and I think he's really been undervalued. I think people forget he was a National League MVP, 5-tool guy, played the whole field outside of catching and pitching. I mean, he can really do it all. He's a prototypical guy. There's a reason Joe Madden loved him as much as he did, to move him around. And I mean, watch out for his revenge tour. Anthony Rizzo's still going to do his thing, so they can do it. It's going to be interesting. And like I said, only one team's coming out of the Central. Really,
it's really going to be the Cardinals' race to lose. I think the Cardinals are far and away the best team in the NL Central. I mean, the Reds barely made the playoffs with all their talent, and now that talent is gone last year. And then the Cubs, if anything, kind of stayed the same. I mean, yes, they still have a lot of talent there that can have a good season. But if I'm telling Todd A, if he were here, if I were telling him to put his bets down, I'd be telling him to put his money on St. Louis, because I mean, even without talking about their pitching, led by Jack Flaherty, you also have, the Goldschmidt, you have Arenado, you have some really good bats in that lineup. So I think it's their division to lose. So if either of these two teams, the Cubs or the Reds, are going to make it, it's going to have to be because the Cardinals didn't come together, didn't perform as well as they were expecting to. It's going to be them not living up to expectations. I don't think it's going to be either of these two teams going above what their expectations are.
True.
I mean, shifting gears over to the Reds, I'm going to have to agree with Craig. It's definitely the Cardinals' division to lose right now. But I feel like pitching-wise, the Reds probably have the best pitching in the Central, at least at the front end of the rotation. It's the back end and the bullpen the problem. We don't have a set closer. I think Amir Garrett's going to get it, but you also bring in Sean Doolittle, and you have Michael Lorenzen, who still wants to play outfield. And then you haven't really addressed shortstop. I mean, have you seen the spring training pictures? Michael Lorenzen be jacked right now, dude. He can hit some bombs right now. But they still need to address shortstop, especially because that's a position that's been really weak since they had Jose Iglesias. And they haven't really answered that. They brought up some people. They've tried moving some people around, and it's just never worked. And it's something they need to address and to hopefully get some more offense, because that's also going to be another key thing.
And that's what stinks about them. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's what stinks about them selling off what they had from last year too, because if they were still in buy mode, I mean, who's saying they couldn't go out and get Trevor Story to fill that gap and be, the shortstop over there in Cincinnati. I mean, you see what he does in Coors Field. If he were able to hit, well there, I mean, going to a little league ballpark should be good too. So, I mean, no, but no, I'm just saying, like, if the Reds were still in buy mode, who's to say they couldn't get Trevor Story for literally the same amount that the Cardinals had to give up to get Arenado?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if that rotation keeps Bauer somehow. They keep Bauer, and then add a guy like Story. I mean, you're talking about them right there with the Cardinals, if not the offseason favorite for the division at that point. If they were to make a couple moves like that and just stay aggressive, which isn't asking a lot, just as you said already. As of hey, you look at the last couple of years when they were making moves, making deals, signing guys, bringing guys up. I mean, it really is interesting to see them hit the brakes so hard all of a sudden and kind of throw the car in reverse when like. Hey, you were almost there. Like you were making some progress, and then all of a sudden just slam the brakes and put it in reverse is kind of crazy to me too.
And it's getting old already. I still like the Sean Doolittle signing, but I don't think that solves enough issues because you just filled the hole you made by trading away your closer. Like, why?
I mean, it's like I was saying about the Cubs. Okay, you let Lester walk and you bring Arrieta back. Okay, well, that's great, but like you're making moves that don't make sense. At the end of the day, like that scale is just kind of balancing itself without going one way or the other. And the Reds did the same thing by unloading some talent, but then also like maybe trying to service their fans by giving them something to hold on to and bringing a guy in or two. So I don't know.
And the other thing I want to hit on with the NL Central is, we've talked about the three teams. I'm sorry, Bryce, my dad's a Pirates fan, so I'd love to talk about them, but let's consider that they're not in the race. But, I mean, you guys can talk a little bit more about Milwaukee. I'm guessing, obviously, a lot of it has to do with Yelich. I mean, that's why he has to bounce back, obviously, for them to do anything worth a damn. So, like, I guess from your guys' perspective, I mean, where does Milwaukee sit?
I mean, if it all comes back together, like you said, it all hinges on Yelich. If he finds his MVP form, I mean, again, like Craig was saying too, it's St. Louis's to lose. If those things kind of break Milwaukee's way, if St. Louis doesn't figure it out and Milwaukee does, I'd argue their talent and stuff is right there. They've got an elite closer right now in Josh Hader. I think Craig Counsell is such a good manager, especially in Milwaukee. I think he's beloved there, and I think that locker room, that clubhouse believes in him and everything that he said. They've completely bought into his system. Whoever comes into Milwaukee, I mean, they're a fun team. I think they kind of fly under the radar, and I mean I think they have just as much of a shot as winning it. If I'm saying the Cubs have a shot, then the Brewers also have a shot. They're right there. Just things have to break their way as well.
I feel like there's a lot more upside for the Cubs because you had just so many hitters that. I mean, it was abysmal last year. If you didn't have Happ, and
Hayward.
That's why I look at the Cubs. Like I actually have a lot more faith in them, and I don't really know why they're kind of in. I'm not going to say tank mode, but kind of more sell mode because they just had so many guys. And I've never been a huge like buyer in Baez, but like, I mean, he's better than he was last year, obviously. So that's kind of my view on the Cubs and Brewers and, the Cardinals there too. So,
yeah.
I also think with the Reds, I also think that they're going to rely on some of their prospects this year because with the shorter minor league, how they just cut all the minor league teams. They cut like 40 minor league teams, I believe.
Crazy.
And you have some of them guys that could be major league ready coming up soon, and hopefully Hunter Green is 100% and ready to go because I got
gasolina.
Because I got the chance to see him pitch in Dayton when he was in low A.
Oh wow!
Now Dayton is high. Man, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good segue into our next player I kind of want to highlight on, and that's another two-way player in the league. Shohei Ohtani did in fact get the all clear to not only hit but pitch as well. Do we think the Angels try to work through whatever rust he may be coming off of? Obviously, we had the shortened year. He didn't pitch very well. He only pitched in 2 games last season, and he had a whopping 37.8 ERA, only struck out 3 batters in 1.2 innings pitched in those 2 games. But, I mean, He did bat nearly 200 with a 291 OB on base percentage. He had 7 homers, 24 ribbies. And I think, if I'm keeping it short, yeah, I think they do work through the rust. First off, what do they have to lose outside of another injury to letting him just figure out his pitching? The bat is obviously translated to the majors. We know he can hit. And yeah, who's to say he can't figure out the pitching? He just really hasn't had the opportunity because of his injury-shortened seasons. And how much? And I have so much respect for him for getting those injuries and then still being like, yeah, I can't pitch, but man, I can still contribute to this team and hit. Throw me in the lineup and let's get it done. And he's just one of those guys I think the whole league is kind of rooting for because I've yet to hear a bad thing about him.
I honestly don't think they're going to have a choice on whether or not they want to stick through the rest because he's easily their second best pitcher on the team as it goes right now. Behind Dylan Bundy. And I would rate him even after a bad year pitching above Quintana, above Cobb and all that kind of thing. It does seem as if splitting time is starting to take its toll because except for that first year, he's really not had a lot of success doing both. You brought up Michael Lorenzen earlier. I could see that being the way long-term, how that ends up. I could see him being more of a bullpen guy down, later on in his career where he doesn't have to focus so much on one or the other. Because, at the beginning, I didn't know how it was going to work. I was like, eventually he's going to have to pick one or the other because the way these athletes train now, it's all, it's so hyper-focused on certain things that like how he's going to be able to dedicate enough time to be very successful at both. How is he going to put enough time in to be, an MVP caliber outfielder as well as a Cy Young caliber, starting pitcher? It's kind of like the old Parks and Rec quote, you don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. That's what I figured it was going to end up being. But I could see him long-term going the way of being in the bullpen and being, in the outfield. But as far as this season, they don't have a choice whether or not they want to stick to the rest because he's easily, even if you don't rate him above, as the second best pitcher on the Angels, he's still a guy you need in that rotation to be successful this season.
And I'm going to have to agree with Craig because they're so thin. If they had signed a Trevor Bauer or a big name starter, I feel like that takes the pressure off of kind of pushing Shohei back into that rotation full time, especially at higher up in the rotation. But when he was rolling, he was great. He had that 4.2 with 3 ERA and 63 strikeouts in his rookie season as on the Angels. And then he also was raking that year. But with all the injuries, you have to be really careful because the first sign of wear on that arm, if you wanted him to be a bullpen arm down the road, you need to be ready to pull the leash and take him off the gas. Otherwise, you could tank this man's career. You could Andrew Luck, Shohei Ohtani. And that would just be bad for the entire game of baseball. Two-way players are so exciting because those are just as rare as the legendary switch pitcher for the Giants. You don't want to – you want more of these guys to come up. You don't want them to be scared about tearing up their throwing arm. Right. And, only being a hitter and not being that great. Oh, shoot, he played for the Cardinals. I can't remember his name. Someone help me out here.
I got nothing. There it is.
66.
Mark McGwire. Is it Michael? Describe him again.
He wore 66 for St. Louis. He pitched and hit for a while, and then he became a primary outfielder.
I know who you're talking about, and I also can't think of their name.
Because he was
Rick Ankiel. Was it Ankiel?
Yes, it was Ankiel.
Oh. Okay.
But when he shifted away from pitching and hitting and only became a hitter, his career just kind of tanked. Now he tried to come back for a little bit, but he was never able to actually come back to form in one thing or another. It seemed like splitting time was actually better for Rick Ankiel, but injuries derailed that.
And the big thing too, and I agree with you guys. You gotta at least try at least a little bit on splitting. But the biggest thing I always say, hitters are just more valuable than pitchers. So you got to save his hitting. That's the most important thing. Yeah, he might be the second best pitcher on that staff, but that's just because their staff's not very good. And that's not fair to him. But I think you that has to be their primary focus. I'm super confused what the Angels have been doing the last really decade. I mean, they obviously Trout's amazing, but there's a reason they haven't really done anything around him because they haven't really done much to build around him. And I know they've tried, but as far as Ohtani, yeah, it's hitter first. That's the way I look at it. He's hitter first, and they got to focus on that if it doesn't work out on the pitching end.
All right, guys. So in the last week, we had some kind of off the wall, interesting, a little fun news story dropped. Tim Tebow officially stepped away and retired from playing baseball. He was obviously in the Mets organization. I think personally, I think maybe he stepped away kind of knowing that, like, okay, the Mets kind of changed course and they're not necessarily a joke anymore. They're putting together a competent baseball team, and I don't know if I've got a spot in a competent baseball team. So I think it's time to walk away. He's obviously got a great gig on the SEC network. He's got nothing to prove to anybody. He's lived a hell of a life so far. And but that brings up an interesting question. We've had a couple of multi-sport guys come over to play baseball, and I want to know, who had the better baseball career, if you will, if you're talking Michael Jordan or Tim Tebow. And I'll give you my quick answer, and I'm going to take MJ, not based on any stats. I don't care about the numbers. I'm taking MJ because I have always felt like he did it just kind of as like a big F you, like, I can do this if I want to do it, and let me just show you. And like, because he's always had that uber competitive spirit that made Michael Jordan. Like, so I think it's just hilarious to think about, his baseball career as he just did it because he felt like he could do it. Whereas I think Tebow had a legit shot if he had chosen that path maybe earlier in life and focused on it, as kind of as Craig said, you don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. If Tebow had, not played football, you never know what kind of career he could have had in baseball, but I felt like he was a better ball player. But I'm still going to take Michael Jordan just because it's hilarious when you think about his White Sox career, if you will.
I'm gonna, obviously, I want to say play devil's advocate. I'm gonna play Angel's advocate with Tim Tebow, just purely based off of stats. And I know it's a rough thing to say because Tebow played 5 seasons, Jordan just played the 1. But Jordan only batted .202 with a .289 on base percentage, had 3 homers and 59 RBIs. Whereas Tebow batted .222 with a .299 on base percentage, 18 homers and 109 RBIs. Now, granted, that was in 5 seasons, but it just seemed like he really went all in on baseball to a team that didn't really want to bring him up, unless they just wanted to sell some seats. Like, they wanted to sell jerseys, they wanted to sell merch, they wanted to sell tickets. And then as soon as I got Lindor, I'm sure Tebow saw the writing on the wall where he wasn't going to get a roster spot because now they have the hype player. But I know he's saying that he wanted to get, his life was pulling him in another direction, but I just felt like he saw the writing on the wall after all that time. But if I had to pick between the two of them, as much as I love MJ, one of my favorite basketball players of all time, I'm going to take him. I almost said baseball. Nope. Him over Ted Griffey Jr., MJ the GOAT.
He can be one of your favorite minor league baseball players of all time.
I
think I could do that.
The solid compromise there.
Now, with mine, it's just kind of hard to tell because I think that both of them were kind of just publicity stunts, if you will. And Tebow's batting average when he got to AAA wasn't really that good. It was like it was like 163.
If you're starting with a 1, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, and the Mets had guys that were on their AAA team that year, such as Rajay Davis as well, who was trying to make a comeback. So he didn't get as much playing time, but it's still hard to tell with, I guess, all the publicity stunts that was going on, like Michael said, because both the White Sox, whenever Jordan played, and then Tebow, they made a lot of money off of just the merchandise and ticket sales alone.
Yeah, I think Tim Tebow's biggest mistake was he didn't go to a Florida team. I think if he would have gone to the Rays or the Marlins, then I think it would have been a little bit better. What stinks for me is because I'm a Tebow guy. I like Tim Tebow. I was a fan of him in college. I just liked the way that he played. He kind of broke the mold as far as not really broke the mold, but he isn't your prototypical quarterback in the sense that he's basically built like a linebacker, but also playing quarterback. And it's kind of stinks because he threw awkwardly. And because of Tebow mania, he got a lot of haters. He got a lot of negative stigma around him. And I think like that's the only reason why when he tried to go to baseball, I think Tebow had that drive to still be a professional athlete. He still wanted to be a professional athlete. It wasn't going to work out in football, so he wanted to try his hand at baseball. And the only reason he received so much hate and people now, granted, social media wasn't around when MJ did it, so maybe if MJ had done it today, maybe there would be more hate on there. But like I feel like, there was a lot of hatred towards, he's taking the spot of somebody else, whatever, that. But I think it's because that negative stigma is why there were people that had so much of an issue with it. I think he finally got to a point, like you guys were saying, where I think he proved that he could do it sort of by making it as high as he did. And then was like, I don't need to really chase this anymore. I've proven that I can get to a solid level. Realistically, with his age and how long it was taking him to get through the minor league system, it's not like he was going to get like some gigantic contract even if he had made it to the major leagues. He might have just for the sake of publicity, but like he's not going to be out here making, Fernando Tatis, Mike Trout money, not even Justin Upton money. He's not going to be making anything around that. So I think he kind of chased that drive a little bit. I was able to do that. But, we were talking about it yesterday. I just think that Tebow has kind of that negative stigma around him because I guarantee you if Tom Brady, woke up tomorrow and was like, I'm going to go be a catcher again. I want to chase that dream. I doubt there's going to be anybody if he were to go to the Rays, let's say, or go to the Red Sox, there would be anybody that would be like, oh, he's taking the spot of somebody that deserves it. Like, no, they would back away and let Tom Brady play. But, I get it. MJ and Brady are the greatest of all time in their sports, and Tebow really was never that in either sport that he played, but I just think that he had that negative stigma around him.
I always thought that if both MJ and Tebow would have made the major leagues, I always thought that they would have been out there for a cup of coffee and just for something like a publicity stunt. As I mentioned earlier, like they might have only played like 100 career games or even less than that, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you would have seen them in any kind of starting lineups, clutch moments, postseason runs either. I mean,
why not? I mean, Deion Sanders literally did both at the same time. Why wouldn't he be in the conversation? Like, you tell me if Tim Tebow was like coming up to the major leagues and was hitting, 341 with a ton of home runs and RBIs, that they'd be like, well, but you're still Tim Tebow, so we're gonna put you on the bench for this one.
No. But I mean, if he had gotten called up, and I mean, it depends. It just depends on the situation. If he had gotten called up 2 years ago with the Mets when they weren't winning, when they were winning 70 games, then yeah, he probably would have started every game just to put butts in the seats and to see what he could have done. It's not, it's not so bad to where like, well, we don't expect you to do anything. But I mean, the expectations wouldn't have been there. Now, of course, if he comes out and is hitting 325 homers, then hell yeah, and he's leading his team to a playoff run, then yeah, you ride the hot hand. But that would have been such an astronomical event, I think, to be completely honest. So one of our last topics that I want to talk about is we want to look at prospects, because prospects, man, when you talk baseball, prospects is really where it's at. That's a whole different kind of animal. Not just in baseball, but really I'd argue in other sports. You don't see anything in other sports quite like what you see in MLB when you're talking single A, low A, high A, double A, and triple A guys and what you see. So we're going to keep it a little shorter. I want one prospect per league. So 2 guys total from everybody that we just kind of want to keep your eye on, whether they make the major league roster this year or not. That's not really the criteria here. I just want to know what kind of names we're kind of keeping tabs on. And Matt, why don't you go ahead and lead us off? I don't know if you've led us off yet tonight, so let's give you the floor first here.
So in the end, I'll start NL. Biggest one I'm really excited about is and it's mainly because where does he fit? We already talked about the Padres, but Mackenzie Gore,
sure.
Where does he fit? I really like him. He actually played up here in Fort Wayne for the Tin Caps here for a bit. Really enjoyed watching him. He's a stud. think he was a 3rd overall pick when he was drafted. So, I mean, watching him, he's a stud. Where does he fit kind of with, this season and the future of the Padres? I'm not really sure, but I'm excited to see him and kind of where he ends up. I talked a little bit. I'll try to stay away from Sox, but, just I guess I'll say 2 guys. But obviously Andrew Vaughn, he could potentially, be in the starting lineup, or I mean, not the starting lineup, but, on the 25-man roster here for the Sox. But if I'm sticking away from the Sox, I think the biggest one for me is Casey Mize. Obviously, Detroit is, I mean, they are what they are, but he's the number 1 overall pick for a reason. He's a stud. He's already played in Detroit, and I know he played it. I think he pitched against us once, and he was pretty damn good. So I'm excited to watch him more.
Yeah, I think Mize had like a fast track to the major leagues, because if you notice, he wasn't in the minors hardly any time.
No, not at all.
Less than 2 years, right?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, he was, again, he has to be pretty close to meeting his innings requirement for. I mean, because I was actually kind of shocked to see him still on, being on that. But again, last year was a 60-game season, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going off of that, you brought up Mackenzie Gore. I'm right there with you. I mean, he's the 6th best prospect in baseball right now. The Padres, a lot of ways they have a lot of ways they can handle Mackenzie Gore. You mentioned it, the fact that where does he fit? I mean, they could throw him in the bullpen. They could trade him for a bigger piece after the Musgrove move and the Snell move and the Darvish move. So that'll be interesting to see what they can do with him, because the Padres bullpen did struggle last year, so you could throw him in the bullpen, or heck, if they're trying to add some pieces down the stretch, whether it be to the bullpen or to their starting lineup, they can make a move with Mackenzie Gore. So that'll be really interesting to watch there. My AL prospect, I was actually surprised he was on a list, because, he seems kind of weird now because of the postseason he had. But Randy Arozarena, he's a 34th ranked prospect right now in baseball. Had kind of a, humdrum middle of the road career until last year's massive postseason run, where he's setting records for most hits, the ALCS MVP, 10 home runs in the postseason. Now, I know he's had some, off the field issues this year or this offseason, and we'll see how he fits in with the Rays as far as, can he keep that going? Is this just kind of a flash in the pan, random, Marco Scutaro-esque, postseason run where he's just kind of random and has a great, postseason and then turns around and doesn't do a whole lot after that? Or is it going to be, where he is going to be a fixture in that lineup for years to come until they decide they don't want to pay Randy Arozarena and trade him away like they did Blake Snell? But I mean, I'm interested to see what Arozarena does this year.
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna lie, Craig. I really, really like that one. I didn't even think about him because I mean, now all of a sudden,
well, it seems second nature to like that. He's major league awesome player because of what he was able to do in the postseason. But technically still is a prospect.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that. I love that outside the box thinking a little bit there. I know Matt wanted to stay away from his favorite team in the AL. I leaned hard when it came to my NL pick. I leaned hard into the Cubs, and they've got a lot of guys. I'm not going to lie to you. They got some guys that are coming up that are potentially kind of that that upper echelon. I mean, Miguel Amaya is a big time catching prospect. They've got some other guys down there, but I'm looking at Ed Howard. He was the 2020 first round pick of the Cubs. He's only 19 years old. He's a kid. I mean, that's a decade younger than me, basically. And he down the road, potentially if all things kind of break right, I mean, you could pair him right there in the middle infield with Javi, and that's a second base shortstop kind of punch that I think that would rival a lot in baseball if everything breaks the way it can. He's also big bonus. He's a local kid right there in Illinois from Linwood. So Cubs fans are going to love him. They already love him. They were super happy when the moment he got announced as the first round draft pick. And really, he has all the physical tools that you look for in a major league ball player. He's 6'2", 215 pounds already at 19 years old. So he can bulk up if he needs to. He's a potential power hitter if his swing develops, and he's already kind of rated as a plus base runner. So I mean, he has all the tools. He's so raw, and sometimes those are the most exciting guys. The guys that that ceiling can be so high if he's molded the right way. In the AL, got to talk about the biggest name when it comes to prospects. I mean, the guy that if you bring up a prospect list right now, or my God, if you look at a baseball card, it's Jason Dominguez for the Yankees. This kid, I mean, I cannot imagine being 18, just turned 18 years old, and he's already had guys, full grown adults, have already given him player comps, player comparisons to guys like Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, and Mike Trout. How in the hell are you going to say this 18-year-old kid reminds you of those three of the greatest human beings to ever step on a baseball diamond? That, yeah, I see those same tools in this 18-year-old kid. I don't care what he's done. That is mind-boggling to me. That it's just, I mean, and it's totally unfair to me, in my opinion, because, man, when you player comp him to those three guys, if he could even potentially have a Hall of Fame career and still be considered a bust because of the comps that other people put on him that he never asked for. Like, and this is all, the craziest thing is this is all before he's taken a professional at bat, even one. But of course, all eyes are going to be on him as spring training gets rolling, even if he's not out there. I mean, any talk around the Yankees is going to kind of revolve around Jason Dominguez and just his massive ceiling that he has bestowed upon him.
That the Jason Dominguez just reminds me of that scene from Benchwarmers. The guy came over with like the fake birth certificate that says I am 12 with a $20 bill. Like, Jason Dominguez is not 18. That man is 30. Like, there is no way. He is just built like a linebacker. He has that, just, he's big, he's stocky, and he just rakes from everything that I've seen. And that's a lot of pressure. And Chris, I know you didn't shy away from your favorite team. So I'm not going to either. I was torn between Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo about who was going to get the call first. And honestly, I think it's going to be Hunter Green, just because that man has dominant stuff when he wants to. He's already racked up 89 Ks his last season playing. And it was insane because he throws over 100-mile-an-hour fastball as a starter consistently. He has that consistent, easy gas. And I think with a weaker starter rotation, he deserves a shot. And if he doesn't work out as a starter, well, our oldest Chapman started off as a starter, transitioned to closer with that gasoline. And, maybe you don't need him to rack up 6-7 innings. If you can get 2 solid, no-run innings, you have a dominant guy right there, and you just solved your closer question. Because that's how Amir Garrett started. He had a dominant performance against the Cardinals and then never had a dominant start after that. But he has been phenomenal out of the bullpen. He is that dog, as he says. On the AL side, I'm going to have to go with probably my favorite team in the American League, the Blue Jays, and Nate Pearson. If there's one thing I love about pitchers, again, it's easy gas. That man throws gasoline. He did play in 18 innings last season in the majors. But in 2019, he had a 5-4 record with a 2.3 ERA, 119 strikeouts, only averaged 2.5 walks per 9, 5.6 hits per 9, and averaged almost 11 Ks per game. And it's insane. And if he comes up there and he gets rolling, the Blue Jays are going to make the postseason. And that's a huge piece of that starting rotation that the Blue Jays don't have. And I feel like he's going to may even be the opening day starter out there. And Bryce, I want to kick it over to you. You're saving the best for last year. What do you got, man?
Yeah. Well, so with me, I tried to pick 2 guys that I seen play that I seen play in person that are not so much the usual guys that we talk about, like the Wander Francos of the world and guys like that. So with my pick of the National League, I have to go with Jalen Davis. I seen him play in AAA with the Twin system before he got traded into Sam Dyson trade back in 2019. He went to the Giants then. He's the Giants' 13th overall prospect. He's played in about 21 major league games so far. He's only got a 167 batting average, but in AAA, this kid could hit, and he's a really good fielder. He's really quick on the defensive side of things. So, and if we look at the Giants outfield, I mean, besides Yastrzemski and Dickerson, I mean, he could push Dubon off the roster. Maybe he could push Austin Slater, and he could definitely push Darren Ruff because we knew who Darren Ruff was when he played for the Phillies, and I think last year was Ruff's first year back in the league after being like Japan or Korea. So Jalen Davis could easily step into that mix because he's on the 40-man roster right now as is. So if he can have a good spring training, I think that he can be someone to keep an eye on. And then in my AL pick, I have to go with Nick Allen. He's the number 4 prospect for the A's. Now, this guy has always been a top 30 prospect, but he was a low top 30 prospect when he first got drafted. I seen him play with Beloit up in Fort Wayne and South Bend at a South Bend Cubs game. He's not strong at the plate just yet. Doesn't have a really good batting average, but he's really good on defense. And he's kind of got comparisons to like Derek Jeter on the defensive side of things. And I think he's projected to start out in Double-A Midland this year because he was in High A 2 years ago when the last minor league season played. So I think that he could be somebody that could get on the 40-man roster before the year is over, especially if he can make it to Triple-A.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of touched on all of the baseball topics and some more that we wanted to touch on tonight. I really want to thank our 2 guests, Bryce and Matt, for hopping on, for stepping up, taking the call, and coming on here. I know they love to talk baseball, so it was super fun to get some new voices in here to do this special. This was just that. This was special for me. I'm sure it was for everybody else. I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Craig Crash Course down there, for obviously the opportunity he's given us to create and expand on the MCT podcast, and then throwing it into a special already, giving us that kind of platform to talk about, my favorite sport in baseball. And I want to thank my fellow MCT co-host, Michael, down there, for just, always being ready at the helm and excited to get this thing rolling. I really, really think the MCT is special with you and I in there, and Tade as well. I know he didn't want to talk baseball, which is fine, but he, super special guy anyway. So, I mean, I want to thank everybody for listening, for tuning in on this one. It's been so much fun. I really hope that we can get Bryce and Matt back on to talk more baseball. I had such a blast doing this tonight. I know we'll do way more baseball content in the future, as obviously the season is not even kicked off yet. So it's going to be a good time. Thank you guys for tuning in. And as you can see on my screen and Michael's screen, we've got our Twitter ads there. So I want to just point that out. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Topher92. That's spelled out as there. Michael's got his Twitter handle there. Matt, Craig, Bryce, you want to drop your socials? Go right ahead.
All right. Yeah, I will.
For sure.
Kick it off.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to type it out on here so they can see.
That's fine.
It'll be a lot easier.
Perfect.
All right, so yeah, there you go.
How do we do that?
You click rename.
If you hit your participants, hit participants, Matt, and then hit click load over your name.
We go. There we go.
Hey, look at that.
Technology, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta love it.
I'm not bad with technology, but I just started using Zoom like a year ago whenever COVID hit for my college classes.
Right.
I think just about everybody on the planet is in that same boat when it comes to Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, go right ahead.
And of course, you can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. So
beautiful.
Yep.
All right. Well, that does it for us. Thanks everybody once again. This was awesome. Absolutely had a blast, and we will see you next time. You can definitely catch the Crash Course podcast every week on Tuesdays, and you can find Michael and I on the MCT Podcast on YouTube on Saturdays, and we will have an episode this week. Michael and I are full go. We don't take no breaks. We got a special in. We just added on, so we're ready to go. We will catch you guys then.